All right. Well, by that, let me clarify. I don't mean to say that I prefer plug-in hybrids over all electrics. I am hoping that in my lifetime, I'm 65, so the next 20 years or so, we see gasoline vehicles essentially go away. And so I'm absolutely in favor of all electrics, but I'm going to talk about a little later about why I think plug-in hybrids are very important in that transition to all electrics. I got my first Chevy Volt 8.5 years ago. I have owned four plug-in vehicles. I bought three. One of them they replaced for me, and I'll talk about that guy in a little bit. But before I introduce the stars of the show, the hybrids, give me 1 or 2 minutes just to say, describe sort of where I am coming from. This is going to sound like it's going to take a long time, but believe me, I'll get up to the present pretty quickly. 1970. April 1970. I was a freshman in high school. I didn't journal or diary. I don't know what I was thinking about back then, but I do know I did something that I'll always remember, and that is walk to school one day in April of 1970. Glenn, why did I walk to school? What happened in April of 1970? Anyone know? The
It was
first
the first Earth Day, John. It was the first Earth Day.
Yes, it was. That's right. And I walked the 3 miles to school rather than ride the school bus. Entirely symbolic because the buses still ran, but some of us did that. And so I never did it any other time. So I knew that I know that I had some sort of environmental orientation even back then, although I can't remember anything else that I was doing. And it's sort of been with me as a lifelong thing. Also in the 70s, we had the oil crunches. Right as I learned to drive, we had oil shocks from the embargo and the Iranian Revolution. So the price of gas shot up, and that was very distressing, lines and whatnot. And I wasn't very good in school. I became a delivery driver using lots of gas, driving up to 200 miles a day. But I always thought about it, trying to be as efficient as possible. I drove small, quick, efficient cars. And late in the 80s, somehow I got this bug, read some articles, James Fallows in the Atlantic. And I decided that Buy American was what I wanted to do. So let's get up a little bit later in time, and I stopped driving, went back to school, got a bunch of degrees, and I started teaching chemistry at VCU eventually. But I had to drive the kids around and still use gas. I wanted an American version of a Prius. That was what I was waiting for. Let me have that 50 plus miles per gallon. And then a miracle happened. I had been driving GM cars, had three Pontiacs. My wife had a Saturn, and GM announced that they were going to make this weird vehicle that you could plug in and drive on electricity. And I thought, wow, I thought about it a little bit. Where's that all come from? Well, some of that's coal, but that's all American. That's domestic. So that was really exciting to me. And so let me walk out here. I was staying in the shade, by the way. It is pretty warm out today. And introduce these two dudes. So this is a Gen 1 and a Gen 2. Can you guys see? Chevy Volts, and one of the first ones ever made and one of the last ones ever made. And so this one in front is a 2012 that I bought in December of 2011, 1 year after they first went on sale. Just for some of you to know this, 6 months before the first Model S went on sale. So hey, Charles, you know this one also. They first went on sale in December of 2010, along with what? The Nissan Leaf. So the Leaf and the Volt were sort of the first kind of mainstream production plug-in vehicles, one a plug-in hybrid, one all electric. And so a year after that, I brought it home on Christmas Day. They let me have one of those big bows you could put on top. And my kids were like, oh yeah, whatever. So they weren't as excited nearly as much as I was in 2011, but 8.5 years ago, that's when this guy came home. And I went into the electric era. And so here's where you plug it in, domestic fuel only with the electricity. And so this is the Gen 1, the first generation of Volt. The red one is the one they used a lot in their advertising. So I'm not going to say a ton about it. I think you guys kind of know a lot about what these are. If you have any questions, if there's anything I leave out that you'd like to know, let me know. Well, let me just tell you what this guy can do. They said 35 miles of electric range. I would be depressed to get that. Other than really lousy weather, we all know about EVs, that in the cold and winter and whatnot, they don't do as well. But in any kind of mild weather, I typically got about 45 miles of electric range. And since my daily driving, I live in the city, most of my stuff is around the city, I would generally stay under that range, 40, 45 miles. And so I wouldn't use a drop of gas. It has gas, it's capable of doing gas, but what does it, now that, someone typing, who's unmuted. But most days I will not use, the vast majority of days as I drove this thing for my daily driver, I used essentially no gas. I would sometimes have weird conversations with EV enthusiasts online, and they would say things like, you don't have an EV, you have an electrified vehicle, but it's not an EV, it has gas in it. And I would say something like, well, I just went 7 months and 4 days between putting gas in it. And I drive just about every day. What do you think I was driving on? And you know, it's an electric vehicle. These are. So 35 miles, I would get typically 40, I think 40 plus. I think 53 was my record ever on it. Let me show you one feature. I won't focus too much on this thing. This is one criticism that people had with the early Volt, and that's the middle of the back seat. That is cup holders. Great if you want cup holders and you're sitting in the back seat, but if you want another person in there, that's pretty uncomfortable. I've had people sitting on those cup holders, but it's not a good way to travel. And that's one thing they changed when they went to the new one. Okay. So this is the Gen 1 Volt made from 2011 model year to 2015 model year. They upped the range just slightly between the second and third year for the 2013, but basically it was about the same vehicle. Okay. And Charles, I was going to ask that you talk about my other vehicle. The next electric plug-in that I got was not this guy.
Sure, I'll show that picture right now.
Are we able to do that?
Hold on one quick second.
Okay.
Here we go. Everyone should be able to see a lovely motorcycle.
So at the end, as I was fully immersed in EV technology, I was wondering, is there an electric motorcycle? Anyone make that? And people told me no. The guy I Volt from said no. There's no electric. It'd be too heavy. I think he was thinking lead batteries or whatnot. But I found out that there are electric motorcycles, and there's an American company that makes them. Maybe a couple others, but the main one is Zero. They assemble them anyway. Lots of parts from all over, of course. But Zero motorcycles in California, and I discovered that. And I said, oh, that's interesting. Let me check this out. And I looked at it, and of course, we're all looking for that MPGE value. And with cars, you guys probably know this, the equivalent MPG is give or take for a four-wheeled vehicle of, 100 to 136. Does the Hyundai Ioniq still have the record? As far as I know, that was the highest one. If it's a bigger thing like the I-Pace or e-tron or the Pacifica plug-in, the hybrid, there may be 80 MPGE. So I looked down at the Zero and I saw this number, 475 miles per gallon equivalent. And my head turned around a couple of times and I went, holy cow, if I were a motorcycle guy, which I've never owned one, I'd be all over that. Hey, am I with you guys? Am I here?
Yes, sorry about that.
No, I'm sorry. I'm getting calls from my painter, actually. You probably to do, so I'll call him back later. Um, but that number was just mind-boggling, and I said, man, I'd get that if I were a motorcycle. And it went on like that, and finally they had a tax credit, just like with the cars, that was 10% on the vehicles, 30% on chargers, that was expiring at the end of 2016. So the last day that Moto Richmond was open of 2016, I went in there, never having ridden a motorcycle, and said, all right, I'm buying this thing. And I got a demo, so big discount. It was after the model year, it had the tax credit, so I ended up paying a really good price on that thing, and I bought the motorcycle. It turned out to be I rode it 7,000 miles, and it had a couple of issues, so I thought they would give me some money back for it, and they said, here, have a new one. So they gave me, I turned in my 2016, and I got a brand new 2018, and that's the one that I'm hoping you're seeing, that beautiful sort of cream, white, and black one. And that's what I rode for another year and a half or so. I put about 8,000 miles on that. And then January came and this happened. So riding across the street in front of Siegel Center, going straight across Broad Street on Harrison, someone thought I was invisible and ran into me, and just about took off my foot, but totaled the motorcycle. And so it is no more, but it's amazing, and I will probably get another one. 0 to 60, 3.3 seconds, over 400 miles per gallon equivalent. So how's that? Dangerous. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Bad weather is bad, can't carry stuff, but two-wheel travel, electric is, if you're looking for efficiency, bicycles, scooters, motorcycles, pretty amazing. Okay, then last year, I had planned this for quite a while. Before the tax credit, couple years, I knew that the tax credit was going to start phasing out. GM was going to hit their 200,000 limit, and it would start going away. So a month before it cut in half last February, I also got 2,000 off. I had a GM credit card that I used, 7,500, and I went to Northern Virginia, and they treat plug-in cars like real cars at the dealers up there. They'll have rows of bolts and volts. They did have volts, now bolts, hopefully still, but I went up there and got a great deal on this guy with the tax credit, with everything. This is a pretty loaded premier version, and after the tax, everything, tax, title, $28,450, so like $14,000 less than the list price is what I paid for this. And this is a Gen 2 Volt. This is second generation. So they started building these in 2016 and went through 2019. This is the 2019, this is the last one, one of the last ones they made. They stopped making them like about a month after I bought mine. So let me tell you about this. One thing they put in the back seat, so let's get to that. First off, they call it a seating area, and I have sat back there, and you sort of have to twist your head over to the side. It would be good so you could put a child seat or something, but they took out the cup holders. They're up in front, and so you could straddle the cup holders and sit in the back if you like. So that's just one sort of functional change that they made. As far as the specs, they went from the 38 was the later Gen 1s, miles of electric range, at least rated by the EPA, to 53. When it switches to gas, it gets supposed to be 42, 43. I don't know. I get upper 40s, even on the highway when there's nothing I can do about that. I just hit cruise, and I've hit close to 50 miles per gallon. And as far as that 53, once again, I do in the mid 60s. And a couple of weeks ago, coming back from Cape Hatteras, tailwind, the ocean's 20 miles an hour, the roads were 45, 50 miles per hour, and I got 77.3 miles of electric range. And so that's my record so far in my new Volt. This is a great car. I don't drive all that much anymore, and so I plan on having this for many years. And I'm going to, that's kind of what I was going to say about the Volts. Oh, there we go. It's electric is the license plate on the early one. If you treat that Z as a German, TS kind of sound. This one, I don't have anything special for this guy. So I'm going to get in and get some AC, and I would like to, you can see what the interior looks like. And also I have a little bit more to say. So here I am climbing in. Okay, hope you're all on me. So I just fired it up, and you all know this. You don't hear any engine noise or anything. How about some max AC for a day like this? What to say? It's a usual dashboard. 123 mpg since my last full charge. A little dusty there in the sunlight, but anyway, the usual thing. It says even after I've gone, let's see, how have I gone? 13 miles, and it's saying I have 55 more. So even after using 13, if you can see here, that's the estimated range. It says that I would go 55. So that's a 68-mile range based on the fairly accurate. They're really quite good with Chevys that's estimating your electric range, and so that's what the car will do. Here you go. For Charles, I have my cup holder and masks and everything. This for my foot. So here's the interior. I'm just about done with everything that I was going to say about it, but let me give a little editorial comment about both plug-in hybrids and then also EVs in general. So as I said at the beginning, I'm an advocate, I'm a diehard advocate of the plug-in hybrids, but I am not saying at all that they are superior. When I went to buy this one, I test drove the Bolt and the Volt EV and the Volt back to back. The salesman said it's a little unusual for people to cross shop these two. Generally, they want one or the other, but I drove them both. They're both a blast. The Volt is just quick and fun. But I decided almost on an advocacy basis to go ahead with another Volt. They both would have been great vehicles for me. But this is why. As he introduced me, he described me as an advocate who's been active, and I have shown the electric vehicles, the cars, the motorcycles. I did a presentation to the Philip Morris retiree group last fall. One of the I don't know if Brian's with us now, but Tesla Brian and I went to the Science and Math Center and talked to a bunch of middle school girls about EVs. So all the farmers markets, not all that many cars and coffee, too early in the morning for my taste, but I've been to the events at the Richmond Auto Show several years. They don't let the Volts in there, but I've certainly gone in there and talked. I've had the Zero in there, the motorcycle. And in talking, in other words, to countless people, I want to describe one of the interactions that I had at the Richmond Auto Show. I was speaking to a young couple, and I hope I'm not being unkind to say they weren't terribly sophisticated. They were just sort of regular people, but they were interested enough to come over to our area and ask about EVs. And I was just describing my car, which wasn't there. But I was describing it. I may have had a picture of it. And I said, well, yeah, you drive on battery and you don't use any gas, and there's no pollution at in Richmond that's producing. And he sort of has this, I don't know if you can see my face, kind of a frown, sort of a scrunched up face as I'm describing it. And he says, well, what happens when you run out of battery? And I said, oh, the car just switches to gas. And his face went, oh, okay. Well, I like that. That's what I'd like to have, is something that'll do that. In other words, last year, someone correct me if I'm wrong, what was our new car sales of plug-in vehicles? Still 2% in America? Are we at 2, maybe up to 3? So in other words, last year, this is new cars. Forget the existing ones. 98% of people are still buying gas mobiles. If we want to get rid of those, we got to figure out a way to entice those people. And I am convinced that for some people, plug-in hybrids are, I was calling them, including online comments, I call them the gateway drug. Well, someone one-upped me, and I love this, but I didn't coin it, called them the gateway plug. So plug-in hybrids are the gateway plug to electric vehicles that you eliminate the range anxiety, what you do when you're on the road, the charging network, and it all becomes immaterial. You want to get in your car and go to Florida? Get in your car and go to Florida. You run out of electricity, and then it becomes a really efficient hybrid, getting a nice gas mileage. I've taken that old Volt to Florida. I've been to Michigan. I've been to New Hampshire, Myrtle Beach several times. So, you know, you can drive those without any of the concerns that are some of the things keeping people from going electric. Okay, so that's why I still stick to the idea that plug-in hybrids are something that even if we have our Tesla, our Bolt, our newer vehicle, our iPace, when we're talking to people, I think it's important to let them know that this option exists. So there, that's kind of the end of that spiel. I have another spiel, and then I'll be done. This is the last thing I wanted to say. I read an article not long ago, and we've all seen this countless years. It's one of the things that critics have to say about electric vehicles. You just have a long tailpipe. The fact that you're not producing pollution coming out of the car right there, you're still producing pollution. It's just someplace else. It's at the power plant. And so this was listed as one of the myths of electric vehicles. Well, I would contend that's not a myth. That's true. We are having to get our electricity from someplace, and electric vehicles, the cleanliness of them, if that's what you're interested in, and that's certainly my interest, my passion, them environmentally friendly vehicles is largely dependent on the source of your electricity. So if you haven't done it, probably lots of you have seen this, but the Union of Concerned Scientists, if you look up just UCS lifetime emissions of EVs or something like that, almost certainly one of the top hits you're going to get is an article with this really cool map that by region around the country, the United States only, shows the equivalent emissions based on the electricity mix, the generation mix of that grid. And there are some places in the country still where driving an EV only gets you the emissions equivalent of a car that gets in the 40s in terms of miles per gallon. Well, there are cars that do better than that. There are hybrids that get in the 50s. So driving an EV in mainly in the Midwest, coal heavy regions, is not all that much of an improvement if emissions, greenhouse gas emissions are your interest. But upstate New York, which apparently has a great deal of hydroelectric power, maybe some of it imported from Canada, is 190 mpg equivalent. Oh, the emissions, I'm sorry, the emissions are the same as a gas car that got 190 miles per gallon, which of course doesn't exist. And so Charles looks like he just put that link up there. So it varies greatly as to what the mix is if your interest is a clean source of transportation. I also think we should have our lifestyles as efficient as possible, not drive anything all that much, live close to where you work. Those are all my things that I care about. But I want to show the last thing. I'm going to step back out into the sun, and that's a very appropriate thing to say because I am definitely an advocate of that and things like that. So this is my solar array. 2.5 years ago, I put this guy in. It's 5.6 kilowatts of power, and this provides almost all of my electricity for both house and for my vehicles. Definitely when I was riding the motorcycle, which takes so very little. But even with the cars, and now I'm not driving that much because I'm teaching from home, I can do that. But this is what I think we should be advocates for as EV owners. If you can't do it yourself, and most houses, quite honestly, can't. When I moved up here, this was a necessity. I had to get a house that I could put solar on. And if you look way up there over the brush that's way out of control, I have a house with a lovely south-facing roof, but it's slate. So even that I can't put solar on. So I had to build the structure, put the panels on. And if you don't know, solar has plummeted in price in the last 10 years or so. And so it really is something that you can put on your house, especially through errands such as Soul United Neighbors of Virginia, the co-op. That's what I did. But if you can't put it on yourself, advocate for it. Advocate for Dominion to go as clean as they can do. Offshore wind, they've been dragging their feet on that for years, putting up some wind turbines and putting more and more solar into place. So I think I'm about talked out. That's the sort of stuff that I wanted to say about the cars, the bike, and the solar advocacy. So I think I will spare your ears any further from the voice of Jon Baker, and I will thank you all for listening. Thank you very much.
Thanks, John. Hopefully we will have some questions as well. Very thorough presentation. Thank you so much for that. I went up to the floor. I mean, I have some things in my head to ask you about, but I'll open it to the floor. I know we have at least one person I know that also owns a Volt, and so that was one thing I had in mind to ask all. But I'm curious to see if what questions, particularly for those of you who, I know Trevor's on the line. I don't recall which EV you have, or if you have an EV, but I'll open up the floor of any questions.
Hey, this is Glenn. I got a question for John. Hey, John, it's my understanding, and you can correct me, that your Chevy Volt is a little bit differently configured than like a Prius plug-in, in that it's basically an electric car that uses the gas to run a generator as opposed to a gas engine that actually drives the wheels. Am I correct?
Oh no, an engineering question. I am a user of the technology, and I am fairly ignorant of it, but I do say that sounds accurate. This car, with some hybrids, I understand, and I've never experienced it personally, but I understand that when you really want a lot of power, you push the accelerator, you're going up a mountain or something, that the gas will kick in to give you a little extra oomph. My vehicles have never done that. They will not turn on until you tell it to. Now, there is a hold feature. You can tell it to go to gas if you want to. The old Volt didn't have it. They put it in the year after that, in the 2013. So you can say, I want to wait until I get to the end of my trip and I'm going into a city. And we know that the gas is most efficient on the highway. Electricity,
but of course.
And so, yeah, when the engine does come on, when the gas engine comes on, my understanding is all it's doing is acting as a generator, and the electric motor is always turning the wheels and making the car go. So I believe that's correct. That's been my understanding since I've owned the car.
Yeah, let me chime in here. I have a little more engineering based on knowing about the Volt. The original Volt definitely was primarily an electric car with the gas engine. Again, it uses one of the two motors as a generator to generate electricity. In the Gen 1 Volt, at very high speeds, there's one mode where the gasoline engine can actually supply torque to the wheels, but a little bit. They actually improved that. They added to that in the Gen 2 Volt. They added two more modes of operation, and one of which also on highway cruising, the gasoline engine does much more physical, mechanical turning of the wheels, because it turns out that a gasoline engine turning the wheels directly is somewhat more efficient than going into electricity and then back to the motor. That's how they got the gas mileage up to 42 miles per gallon over the 38, which was in the Gen 1. But in general, it is the gasoline engine is fairly disconnected from the actual drive wheels by way of the battery and the generator and the electric motors.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Good question. I see we have somebody else coming on the call as well. Perfect timing. Hi, nice to see you. So we had done our presentation and Q&A, so perfect opportunity if you have any questions about the Chevy Volt. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'll just let you know kind of where we're at during the talk. But does anyone else have any questions about the Volt or about plug-in hybrids in general? Because I think it's always an interesting discussion about how long do we stay in the period of plug-in hybrids? Because right now, I mean, we don't have the Volt anymore, unfortunately, but we do have the Chrysler Pacifica. We have You know, the Ioniq has a plug-in hybrid version. And, you know, and I think Ford, I didn't realize, but the auto show this past January, Ford had, I think it was an Escape or no, an Explorer, one of those two, I forget which one, as a plug-in hybrid, because they actually had it on the showroom floor.
There's a plug-in Prius too. There's a plug-in Prius.
Right.
I think Escape. I think it's the Escape.
Right, thank you. So there's lots of options out there still in terms of plug-in hybrids, but then you have those who say, well, shouldn't we just go right ahead to just making really cars with really large batteries? And I think that way you could just, you know, you don't have to worry about having the gasoline as a backup because you have such a big range on the battery that it won't be an issue. And I know one challenge of that, well, there's two challenges. I guess one is the bigger the battery, it does cost more. So, you know, while battery prices are coming down, it still adds to the cost of the car. And the second thing is that, you know, from an environmental standpoint, I know I've seen this argument that, you know, and if you're the average person that drives 30 miles a day, 20, 30 miles a day to and from work, and maybe once in a blue moon, you take a long trip, but your vast majority of the time you're driving a limited range, you're buying a car with a huge battery and you never use all of it, you know, unless you go on a long trip. So from an environmental standpoint, you could say, I've heard people say the argument that it's too much battery and it consumes a lot of resources to make that large battery and a lot of it's not being utilized. So why not make a car with a smaller battery that can meet the need? So I just sort of throw that out there. I prefer to be agnostic on the issue because my feeling is any car in the road that has an electric motor on it, there's going to be an environmental benefit to it. You know, whether it's a plug-in hybrid or an all-electric vehicle, even a non-plug-in hybrid. You know, there's a lot of Priuses on the road and, you know, and other cars that are hybrids, depending on the car, you know, that has enough of an electric battery to increase the mileage. So you're burning less gas. And so that's better than nothing, you know, so.
Yeah, I just heard that Ford just announced their F-150s for next year. None of them are plug-in hybrids, but every one of them is going to have a hybrid option. Small battery, which will provide a little bit of electric mileage. To me, what really killed the plug-in hybrids, more or less, although there are still some kicking around, was one is cost. The last estimate I saw that someone independently looked at the Chevy Volt said that GM was actually losing about $7,400 per vehicle because of the cost of, because having two drivetrains and the lower production numbers, just you know, the cost of benefit, the efficiency of the economics of building them was just not that great. The second thing really I think is that the California Air Resources Board, which sets the California emission standards, in their ZEV mandate, they really wanted to get away from any kind of a gasoline burning vehicle at all. And they've always wanted to do this. And so they changed the rules on how many credits you got for plug-in hybrids and really increased it so that if you can drive at least 50 miles on battery, you could get 1 credit. So it really, you know, whereas it used to be with the Chevy Volt, it was up to, I think, 3 credits per Chevy Volt. Even Tesla's got brought down from 7 credits down to 5 credits or something like that. So the combination of the fact that manufacturers don't get as much benefit from building the plug-in hybrid as opposed to building the battery-only vehicles, and the fact that it just costs more, and it's just many more parts they got to deal with.
Yep, economics certainly plays an undeniable role. I still say, how do you get the 98% into plug-in cars? And I think all possible routes should be explored. And I'll say this about myself, that a couple of years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, I personally was more excited about the Pacifica than the Model 3. Because I've been saying for a long time, we got to get out of sedans. The world is going away from sedans. So a minivan, a friggin' mini, excuse me, is that okay? Say that one. A freaking minivan with a plug, where with the tax credit cost about the same as a non-plug-in, the regular one, was a huge advance. And as I understand it, they're selling well. So that's exciting to me. I hope they continue to do that. It might just be compliance, just to meet CARB standards, but I'm glad it's there. And yeah, someone mentioned the BMW extended range. It has a very small gas tank though. So that would be difficult if you really wanted to go on the road, as I understand it.